有朋自远方来。2025年春节刚刚结束，一位新朋友走进马前头工作室。他在经济舱和航站楼度过了48小时，曲折飞行几万公里，然后才绕过整个地球到达上海。除了宇航员，这是地球上离我们最远的人。您好，您来之前我已经了解您的一些资料了，但是您可能还不了解我们这个节目。这里我想先做一点自我介绍。我和我这些同事在制作一个网络新闻评论的视频节目，我们在各个平台有300万的关注量，关注者主要是20到35岁的青年男性。我们每周3次播出20分钟左右的视频，每期视频有40万到70万的播放量。在电视和报纸衰落以后，我们在中国算是一个中等水平的媒体，很高兴和您能够在这个节目上交流。中国人对于乌拉圭最重要的一个印象就是您这个国家的足球非常强，所以我第一个话题要和足球相关。乌拉圭人口只有300多万，据我了解，目前所有得过世界杯的国家，乌拉圭应该是人口最少的一个。以您的各个国家的经历，乌拉圭的足球或者说乌拉圭的社会和其他国家有什么不同？
First, I want to thank you very much for this interview, and mostly because, as you said, your audience is about young people. You are right when you say about that Uruguay is very well known because it's football. Yeah. And you know, and one of the things that is very impressive is how a little country with not more than 3.5 million people has won 4 world championships in football in 1924, 1928, 1930 and 1950. I think that the difference is between how important is football in Uruguay and how important is football in other countries. For example, in China, football is not the main sport. Football is not yet part of the Chinese way of doing and way of feeling. In Uruguay, football is a feeling. This is the difference, because in Uruguay, when you are a very little boy or girl, you start playing football in the schools, in your neighborhood.
对于中国人来说，乌拉圭算是世界上最遥远的一个国家。您是我见过的第一个乌拉圭人，所以接下来我可能会向您问一些关于乌拉圭相关的话题，让中国人更了解乌拉圭。按照中国人的居住方式，乌拉圭这么大一片面积，我们要居住几千万甚至是上亿的人口，但是乌拉圭只有几百万人，您会认为自己生活在一个非常空旷的国家吗？
Yes, the territory is not little. Is, I mean, about 200,000 square kilometers. And the population is not proportional. This means that Uruguay has a little domestic market. And this is why Uruguay foreign policy is oriented to export in order to reach a broader market. For example, China is the most important commercial partner of Uruguay. Uruguay is the main, for example, beef exporter to China. Uruguay is the first soybeans exporter to China, and is the first exporter of paper, pulp of paper to China. China is supporting Uruguayan growth
乌拉圭一半的人口聚集在首都，那么这个在首都生活和在乌拉圭其他的地方生活有什么不同吗？
Montevideo at all level is better. I mean, education level, I mean, social level is a little bit more than in the rest of the province. But each province and the city of Uruguay has a good level of life. Primary, secondary, and up to the university level, people stay in the city and the province where they born. They born. But after that, if you want to study in university, you have to move to Montevideo. There are few universities in the province, but the main are in Montevideo. And also Montevideo, the capital, offer more job opportunities than in the rest of the country.
从经济上来看，乌拉圭是南美洲最富裕的国家。您和您周围的人会感受到这一点吗？
People feels comfortable because Uruguay is giving to them job opportunities. When you talk about education opportunity and when you talk about health care. Every Uruguayan people, since they born, has access to public health absolutely free. You don't pay 1 RMB and you have free access to education and to health care. And believe me, I used to live in Europe many years, in this case in Italy, and Italy, at the same France or Spain, the United States don't have the level of free education and the level of free health care as Uruguay has it.
从我们的感受来说，乌拉圭是一个很和谐的国家。您作为乌拉圭的共产党人，应该是已经发现这个国家有比较明显的社会矛盾。您能否讲一讲您眼中的乌拉圭有哪些问题？
Uruguay, as he says, has, of course, its contradictions. Uruguay is rich, but the distribution is not equal. Is still unfair. And this is what this is why people elected this new government. And this new government, again, will be a government where the Communist Party of Uruguay is playing a very important role. Because it is a left coalition among all socialist party, communist party, progressive parties that is called Frente Amplio, broad front. And all are left-wing parties. And one of the goals of this new government is to solve the contradiction that exists between rich people and less rich people. The way to doing that is, for example, with fiscal issues. I mean, tax issues. Uruguay tax the rich people, those farmers and cattle producers and so on, and with that taxes, support social policies.
我发现乌拉圭对吸烟管理很严厉，但是是可以合法的吸大麻的。您对这件事怎么评价？
Yes, you know that a former president of Uruguay, that he passed away, he had been for two-time president, the leader of the left party, his name was Tabaré Vázquez, has been very strict against tobacco. And in Uruguay, in the public places, smoke is absolutely forbidden. After that, Uruguay has been the first South American country that let smoke marijuana freely. Also, this has been decided by other left president called Mr. Jose Mujica. You know that the results of that legal marijuana smoking has been contradictory, because some people think that this is a way to let people freely use if they want to smoke marijuana, and marijuana is not dangerous as cocaine, for example, but also says that those who are in favor to let people smoke marijuana is a way to combat the illegal traffic of marijuana, because all this sector that it is very, very dangerous about the traffic of drugs, cocaine, and so on, in Uruguay still exists, but is less dangerous, because now that marijuana is free, they have no the chance to traffic with marijuana.
那您对现在这个大麻管理政策是支持还是反对？
Yes, I support. I think that, you know, that all this kind of decision, are not beautiful in all the aspects, are not positive in all the aspects. But when, at the end of the day, when you make the balance, it is the things that are better are more important than the things that are bad. The balance, and I think that the decision to let people freely smoke marijuana has been more benefit than dangerous. But I personally, I don't smoke marijuana. I smoke tobacco, cigarettes.
我看新闻报道，乌拉圭社会总体上很平静，但是似乎是因为巴西和阿根廷的犯罪影响，也有很多暴力问题。您作为普通人，会感受到这些暴力吗？
It is absolutely true that violence in Uruguay is a matter, is a problem. The same that in Argentina, the same that in the rest of South America, not only Brazil and Argentina. And the government is doing, it's not easy to struggle against violence, but Uruguay is doing its best, and is one also of the priority of the government is to eliminate the violence that exists, of course exists. And you know that the violence has many things that stimulate the violence. One is the poverty. And this is why, as I told you before, and this new government is one of its priority is to distribute the wealth in a more equal level.
我之前看您的资料提到您是参加过乌拉圭共产党，您是怎么加入党的？
I joined the Communist Party in 1971. I was 16 years old, and I was a student and have an important role. I play an important role in the student trade union, and I felt very attracted by how the Communist Party was doing at a student's level. And then to become or to improve my participation in the student trade union, I decided to become member, and the party invited me to become member of the Communist Party.
可不可以在镜头前让观众看一下您的共产党党证？
This is my first communist card. This is the date when I became member of the Communist Party, 1971. Uruguay, since 1973 up to 1985, has a dictatorship, a military government. And through the struggle against the dictatorship, the Communist Party, that was illegal, I had been in jail, and also I have to leave. I had been sent out of my country.
除了讨论国内话题之外，乌拉圭的共产党和左翼党派平时会怎么看待这个世界，看待国际局势？
The Uruguayan Communist Party and the Left Party in Uruguay feels very involved and very close to the international affairs. Uruguay supports the multilateralism that China is promoting, not the unilateralism that United States wants for them. As it happens when the dissolution of the Soviet Union, United States think that they rule the world. And this is not true. Because not only China, but other countries have the right to participate in the world decisions. And this is, and the leader of this way of doing is China. This is why Uruguay at a general level, but mostly at the left party, and mostly by the Communist Party, feels very, very close to the policies, that international policy that China is developing.
能够介绍一下您后来到联合国工作的经历吗？您是怎样到联合国去工作的？
I used to be the Director General of an international organization called DevNet. DevNet means Development Network. this organization was the executive agency of the United Nations Development Program. United Nations Development. This organization has been engaged by United Nations to create a network for link the South countries, the global South, and gave these countries to share technological and commercial information. It has been created before internet. After that, I used to work like senior consultant of the United Nations. I had been engaged to developing programs in Africa and South America.
您来过中国几十次了，您去其他国家有这么频繁吗？
Not so often. My first time in China had been in 1989, September 1989, and then I had been tens of times. One, because I am economist and I had been working with important Chinese companies in order to help them to go overseas. And also I work as consultant of provincial and cities government in China. This is at a professional level. I feel very, very close to China. In 2010, I live in Shanghai the whole year because this organization that I told you before, DevNet, has its own pavilion in Shanghai World Expo in 2010. And this is when my book has been printed in China.
我大多数观众的年龄在20岁到35岁之间，所以您第一次来中国的时候，他们还没出生。您能不能从您的角度介绍一下您观察中国这些年有什么变化？
My first time, as I told you, in China has been in 1989. Then I had the chance and the honor to meet Mr. Deng Xiaoping, and also we had been invited to Shanghai. And the then mayor of Shanghai, that then became Mr. Ru, that then he became first minister of China, invited us to visit Shanghai. And I remember that he described or told us about which were the plans to develop Shanghai. And he showed us which were the plans to build, for example, now is Pudong. And believe me that in that time, what your audience knows as Pudong were rice plants. Very hard to achieve this in 10 years. My second time was in 2000, 11 years later. And when I took a flight from Rome to Shanghai, and when I landed in Shanghai, and I saw what was Pudong, I think I took the wrong flight, because I can't believe that in 11 years, all that the mayor say that he will develop in Shanghai had been reached, has been done. Your audience, the young Chinese people, should know what is called the Chinese miracle. Because, and this is not only my opinion, what China has done in 40 years, no country in the history, in the human history, has done.
您刚才提到您第一次来中国就见到了邓小平，您对他个人有什么记忆？
He received us, he holds us in the people in Tiananmen Square, People Palace, and he smoked a lot, and he said that I have a nightmare. How to give to all the Chinese people the possibility to have 2 meals a day. And he say China will never take the same road of reform as the Soviet Union has walked by that road. And I feel that he has a very strategic vision about how to solve the problem of China, about how to give all the people the chance to eat 2 times a day as the minimum thing that you have to give to those people. And as I told before, the result, and this is why I think that Mr. Deng Xiaoping is in the last century the most relevant statesman.
就是听说您已经写了一本关于中国的书，而且还在写第2本。我能够请您介绍一下您下一本书想表达的内容吗？因为我们毕竟绝大多数中国人都没有体验过从拉丁美洲或者说从南美洲来看中国的感受。我猜有很多观众想读这本书。
Yes, as you said, in 2010, this means 15 years ago, I wrote my first book about China. And I call this book China Breeds a New Era. And this book has been printed here in China. Why I title my book China Breeds a New Era? Because China is changing, but has already changed the world. And China breeds a new era for the not only for China but for the world. Now, this book that I am already finished to write it is called, the title is Discovering China. What means discover is a Latin word that means to move out what is covering. You understand? And I think that the goal of this book is to move what is covering, what people knows about China, to show what is really doing, what is really happening in China. The first chapter is called the 3C to understand China. The first is civilization. China is not only a nation state, but also a civilization state. The second C is Confucian, because China, Confucius' culture, Confucius' philosophy is still alive and takes part of the political and ideological thinking of the Chinese government and Chinese Communist Party. It is a mix between Marxism and Confucian. And this hybrid is very important to understand China. Because for understanding China, you have to understand also Confucius' thought. The third C is communism. Because people think that China is not communist. Because China has, a developed market, and they say that China is more capitalist than communist. And this is not true. China is ruled by the Chinese Communist Party, and the Chinese Communist Party is a Marxist, Leninist, and Maoist party. And all the strategy of the Chinese Communist Party, or the Chinese government, is sought in order to make its own road for building a socialist country, not a capitalist country. It is, the Chinese, the socialism with Chinese characteristic, as Mr. Deng Xiaoping says. The second chapter is called The Reformer and the Reform that Changed the World. The reformer was Mr. Deng Xiaoping, when Mr. Deng Xiaoping launched what is called the process of reform and opening up, he changed the world. And reforming China, the world started making its own change because China. The third chapter is the democracy with Chinese characteristic, because also Western audience, Western thinkers say that China is not a democratic country. But when they say that China is not democratic, they are thinking in the Western democracy model. And the Western must understand that there is more than one model of democracy. More than one, not only one model. And China has its own model of democracy. And China, why China is also a democratic country? Because the result of Chinese policies has helped the people, serve the people, say Mr. Chairman Mao Zedong. And the democracy is the government of the people. And if you are a democracy model, when you serve the people and when the people support you, and Chinese people, it's not a matter of election, but has shown that they support their government. The fourth chapter is what I call the two shames. Confucius say that there are two shames. One is poverty, and the second was that the wealth is not well distributed. That the wealth is concentrated in just a part of the population. And Chinese reach to solve the two shames, because in 2020 Chinese finished with the extreme poverty. There is no extreme poverty in China. This means this shame was cancelled. And the second shame, that is about the distribution of the wealth, China, and mostly after the 20 Congress, start what Mr. Xi Jinping called the common prosperity. This means that the prosperity of China must be distributed in a fair way, that the wealth arrives to all the people, and that China must become a most prosperous society. And this is what is happening in China. And the fifth chapter I call a new dream for a new era. Because since Mr. Xi Jinping in 2013, 5 weeks after he has been elected Secretary General, visiting the Beijing, the National Museum of China, placed in Tiananmen Square, he launched his proposal about the Chinese dream of rejuvenation of your country. And this is, the most important political issue that China now is handling, because the Chinese dream means that China will become in 2049, 100 years after the constitution of the Chinese, the Chinese Popular Republic, the Chinese dream is to become a prosperous socialist country at technological level, economical level, and political level. And this is why I focus the last chapter about how China is building and its Chinese dream.
因为我们很少和南美洲的人打交道，所以我非常想听到您的批评意见，就是无论是和乌拉圭还是和其他国家相比，您认为中国有哪些地方您认为是缺点，是需要改造的？
One problem that China has is that still now the government is making very strong efforts, but the health care is not enough. You have problem with the to spread the social network and give still more access to the social security. You have problem. And you have a problem in order to give all the Chinese, as Uruguay is given, the chance to have at all the level free education. You know that one of the problems that young people in China has that is to access to the universities. The Goku, the examination is very hard. No, all the young people have access to the level of education that they have the right to access. Another problem that China is facing is, and this is about the social contribution, is that your population is aged. And those that have more than 60, 70 years, that work for more than 40, 50 years, they don't have enough pension contribution that they deserve. Another problem is the difference between the development of cities like Shanghai or cities in Jiangsu province. And this is what China is trying to be more fair and support the development. For example, in Xinjiang province, the effort that China is doing, or with the West province, in order to make a more fair distribution, the wealth between the rich province and the more poor province. This is a very critical problem for China, because you see that the level of life between the West Chinese that lives in the Western is very different than the level of life that you see in the East of China. One issue is Hangzhou, Guangzhou, Shanghai, Shenzhen. Another issue is the situation that you face in Tibet, for example. What is important is that the problem exists, the contradiction exists, but on the other hand, the government knows about this and is taking the measures to solve this contradiction.
对于中国来说，乌拉圭是最低调的国家之一，距离远，与世无争，安静地向国际市场供应牛肉，只是在世界杯前后才能偶尔成为焦点。希望今天的节目能够加强中乌两国人民的相互了解。